Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 727. And today's date is July 27th, 2015. And the title of this episode is The Next Phase for the Push into Syria is Now Taking Place. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. The interview with David Morgan has been uploaded to the X22 Report Spotlight channel. You can go right to the X22 Report Spotlight channel. Just go to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, and it'll bring you right to that video. If you want to go to the x22report.com site, you can go there. You will see the interview on the right-hand side. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand the Greek situation. It seems like it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Of course, the corporate media, the U.S. government, talking heads, they're telling us that everything is fine. We're giving Greece more debt, so everything is just absolutely fine. But we can see that certain things are happening at this point. We know the banks are insolvent. We know more austerity is being pushed onto the people. We understand that capital controls are in effect. And we see right now they could be opening the stock exchange, maybe on Tuesday. We don't know for sure. Greek investors will be able to buy stocks either with new money, cash or transfers from abroad, or using cash available in the residual credit of brokerages, says a source. And they're saying that the stock exchange could be open by tomorrow. We'll have to watch and see how this works out. But they are still under capital controls. And they're still looking to do maybe bail-ins. We see that tax evaders in Greece has exceeded 50%. They're finding out that people aren't paying their taxes. They're finding out that people are delinquent on their payments. And people are concealing what they what they owe, or concealing the money so they don't have to pay. The people can just take so much. The people realize that this system is corrupt. The people realize, I'm not handing in my money anymore for the bankers. Because look at this. They get a bailout. Billions of dollars. None of it reaches the people. They get more debt, and more austerity is pushed on the people. The money they're receiving goes to the bankers, the creditors, and whatnot. Nothing reaches them. So they see that this situation isn't going to get any better. It's actually going to get worse. And we see Moody's is out there right now. And they said on Monday that uninsured depositors in Greek banks are in danger of losing some of their money in case of a bank's insolvency. Moody's noted that the changes in the EU Bank Recovery and Resolution Directive, which was legislated in Greek Parliament last week, establish new guidelines for the cases of bank insolvency. One of these is a haircut option for uninsured deposits exceeding €100,000. Under the new legislation, the government has a number of options when it comes to lending institutions that become insolvent. It could decide that the bank must be sold. Bridge institution could be created, and assets could be disjointed based on whether they are good or bad. After January 1st of 2016, the Greek government can also choose the bail-in deposits of more than €100,000. So we can see at this point in time, they put this into this bailout agreement that they would go into the banks and take the money they needed to keep the banks afloat. They're going to take the people's money. Why would they put that in there? We've seen this time and time again. They created these bail-in documents for a reason. They don't create it just to have them. They create it because they will need them later on, and they know this. This is why the U.S., UK, Canada, New Zealand, Europe all did this. And many other nations have done this also. And they keep telling us that everything is fine in the Eurozone, everything is just hunky-dory. And we see right now that the IMF is even out there. And they have a little hard time predicting things. But it's strange how they give tidbits of real information. Because every time they come in and they bail out a country, they tell us, oh, that country's fine now. And then we come to find out later on the country is bankrupt. Look at Greece, look at Cyprus, look at the rest of the countries, look at Ukraine. But we're finding out the IMF has warned the Eurozone faces a gloomy economic outlook. Well, that is true. The IMF's latest health check on the Eurozone found it was susceptible to negative shocks as growth continues to falter and monetary policy runs out of ways to help. Well, we understand the Biz came out and said, listen, all this debt cannot be sustained. It's not working. The free money that was created is not going to the people. It's not spurring economic growth. And governments might need to step in. But we know the governments can't do anything. And they're looking at this and they're saying, yeah, if something happens, a one-off type of an event, the Eurozone will collapse. Well, we all knew this. We all knew the IMF was never recovering. We knew the unemployment rate is much higher than they're telling us, and it continually moves up. We know most of the countries are in a huge amount of debt. We understand youth unemployment is over 50% in most of the countries. How can this work? It can't. The IMF also warns the per capita growth rate for the Eurozone has fallen well below its pre-crisis level. So we have a problem here in the Eurozone. And they're telling us something could happen. Are they trying to prepare everyone? Saying, yes, this is going to happen sooner or later? Because this one-off event could come at any moment. We've seen it happen before, and everything just fell apart. It was like a domino effect. We see here in the United States, they're continuing with the illusion that everything is absolutely fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong, nothing to worry about. The economy is recovering. The last couple of days, we see the stock market continually declining. The Chinese stock market, once again, is falling apart, spreading over to the U.S. stock market. Now, you have to remember, the Chinese are trying to take their yuan/renminbi. They want it to be included in the SDRs as a reserve currency. And of course, the United States government central bankers, they do not want this to happen whatsoever. They will stop it. Or they'll at least try to stop it. And we see their stock market is continually falling apart. It keeps dropping. Are they using some type of cyber attack to destroy their economy just a little bit to say, hey, they're not ready to be included as a reserve currency? It could be. I wouldn't be surprised because we're starting to see a lot of this occur right now with these cyber attacks. And we know the NSA, the U.S. government central bankers, hit different countries when it's necessary to do so to continually push their agenda. And at this point, they need to do it because we're approaching the fall. And this is when the IMF is going to look at it, make their decision, and they know they need to stop this. But we see here in this country, they're telling us that everything is fine, and we're starting to see other economic indicators that, yeah, things are not fine. We're seeing that durable goods has dropped for the 5th month. And this is flashing red lights warning us of a recession/depression coming. We've seen this before, and we're seeing it again. And here we are in 2015. We saw it prior to 2008. So after 2 weak months, durable goods bounced more than expected in June, positive 3.4% versus a positive 3.2%, though non-seasonal adjusted dropped 3.1% month on month, but So it doesn't look good for the economy right now. And when we take a look at this big picture, we see a lot of things occurring right now. We see what's happening in the Middle East. We see the U.S. government central bankers making their move in Syria. We know that Congress is going on vacation for the month of August up to Labor Day. We know certain things occurred during this time period. And we understand the U.S. government central bankers are doing whatever they possibly can to remove the rights of the people. We know the Obama administration is pushing the largest gun grab in American history. This is coming from the NRA. And we discussed this before, how they're going to go after those Social Security beneficiaries from owning guns. What they're doing is they're going to integrate the data for the first time from Social Security Administration into the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS. And this is how they're going to use the system. They're going to use it to remove the weapons of those people who cannot basically handle their affairs. And then once that is done, they'll move it into everyday people who are receiving the Social Security, and they'll keep going. This is what they do. It's almost like when they were going to tax the rich only. And they said, don't worry, we only need to tax the rich. Not the middle class, not the poor. The wealthy need to pay. Well, this is their foot in the door. Once they get the money from the wealthy, they say it wasn't enough. Now we have to tax the middle class. Don't worry, the poor, you'll never be taxed. But this continually goes on until everyone is taxed. We're seeing the same thing happen right now with the gun grab. They're using whatever they possibly can to get the weapons from the people. They're nervous. They're afraid. Just like they're spying on everyone. They need to know what everyone is doing. They need to take your rights away. They need to search you. And we know the NSA and the U.S. government is continually spying on the people. Even though the president told us he was going to have major reforms, they're going to stop the spying. But we know the USA Freedom Act just shifts who is doing the spying. They took it from the government and they put it on the corporations. And now the government just has to order that information. And again, everyone has to take responsibility to protect themselves. Use different ways to make it harder for the government to spy on you. There's no reason. They don't need to spy on you. They don't have the right to do so. You have the right to block them. I mean, you can use a search web page called Start Page. Put your searches in there. It will mask where you are, what you're searching for. You can use a product called Block It Pocket, and you can find that at blockitpocket.com. They have different sleeves, and inside these sleeves, these cases, is silver, copper, and other metals interwoven into the fabric to block the signal. You can put your phone in there. You can put your iPad in there. You can put your driver's license, your credit card, because those will all have RFID chips where people can basically get your information. And this will block it. We know the new IDs, the new driver's license IDs that are coming out, are all going to be fitted with the RFID chip and a barcode. Well, it would be a good idea to slip that in there so this way you cannot be tracked. And you can find those at blockitpocket.com. Or you can write your own encryption. Don't use off-the-shelf encryption. The NSA and other agencies, they already know the method, and all they have to do is come up with the key because they have backdoors into this. You're going to have to learn how to write your own encryption or find someone that knows how to write encryption from scratch, and nobody knows the method, and you have the key. So there are many ways to protect yourself. We understand illegals are continually coming into this country, and it's used for many different agendas. One of them is to put them to work so companies can hire them at low pay. They're not subject to the $3,000 penalty from Obamacare. These people then can go ahead and pump up the bubble for student loans, the auto loans, housing. They can join the armed forces and eventually go on to Obamacare. And we can see they're continually bringing in because they know the American people are completely tapped out. Basically, 1/5 of the population of El Salvador and 1/4 of Mexico now live in the U.S. The official number of illegal aliens in the U.S. stands at 11 million. But there is evidence coming from the Gateway Pundit showing that no, there's a lot more than this. This is really underestimated, and there's a lot more illegals here than is being reported. Because they understand from the last crash, a lot of people's credits are ruined. A lot of people are tapped out. A lot of Americans are saying, you know something, I just don't have the funds to go ahead and go back to school. I don't want to need another payment. I don't need another car. I don't have funds to buy a home. So they bring in illegals because they got to keep the debt spread out. They need the bubbles to be inflated. And the only way to do this is to get more bodies into the country to do this. And we can see this is part of their agenda. Now, we talked about the TPP quite a bit, and we know this is not for the people. We understand the president is keeping this a complete secret. People have to go into a special room. They can't take their phones. They're not allowed to take the TPP out of there. They're not allowed to explain to anyone what it is, or they could be arrested. So we understand that this is completely private. It's for the corporations, not for the people, because if it was open for the people, they would allow people to read it. It reminds me of Obamacare when they said, listen, pass it, and then you can read what Obamacare is. But it looks like Congress, as we know, pushed through the TPA, and it gave the White House autonomous negotiating powers. They put it on the fast track, so they don't need Congress to make decisions. And now we see Australia is getting ready to join the TPP. And we see that this whole TPP involves about 12 Pacific Rim nations. And who knows? At this point, the way it's going, it seems like this could be done in the next couple of days. Now, this will not help the people whatsoever. It will remove the sovereignty of the country and move it over to the corporations. They will be making the decisions. They will control everything. And that has to do with like GMO, food, vaccines, you name it, they will control it. And if there's a problem, it goes to a special secret court. And they take care of it. So we can see at this point in time, this is not for the people. It's for the corporations, for the central bankers. And the people are left out in the cold once again, just like Obamacare. Obamacare was not for the people. It does not give benefits to the people. People think it does, but they don't realize how much they're paying. They don't realize that they're being penalized, taxed. And when they go to use it, they realize, wait a minute, I just spent how much? And what benefit am I getting? Because now I have to pay a copay. So we can see at this point in time, the U.S. government, the central bankers, they've never worked for the people for a very long time. They're working for different interests. We see the sanctions against Russia. It's not working out. The farmers in many of the European nations, they have had it. Farmers in France have blocked routes from Spain and Germany to express disagreement with lowered prices for meat and dairy products in a protest entering its second week. At least 300 trucks carrying the products were forced to turn back. 1,000 farmers in northeastern France, which borders Germany, used tractors to block at least 6 routes and stop trucks with agricultural products. They're tired. They had banners that read, "The prices for our products are not for cheap sales. It is down the end. We are fed up and tired of being robbed." It looks like these countries are having their own internal problems. It looks like their economies are not doing well. It looks like they have an oversupply of agricultural products, though the prices are starting to drop. And this is causing a major, major problem. Now, we talked about Armenia, and we talked about this a while back, about how the protesters were protesting against rising electricity prices. And the government came out and said, listen, and they came out on June 27th and said, listen, we're not going to raise the electricity prices. We're going to suspend them. And what happened at that point is half of the people who were joining in on this protest said, okay, that's fine with us. We don't need to protest anymore. Everything is suspended. They're not raising the prices. The other half, which is being paid by who knows what organization, is continually protesting. So basically, the protesters are in two different camps. One of them said, okay, no problem. The other one says, it's not enough. We want the government to step down. Well, this is something completely different now. And this is the way the U.S. government central bankers do it. They find an issue. They get people all rallied up, charged up, ready to go. And the government met their demands, so it should be over. But again, this is not what they want. They want the government overthrown. And this is why they're continually pushing in Armenia. They haven't stopped. We see this is also happening in Kyrgyzstan. The United States Department decision to hand its Human Rights Defenders Award to Azmizhan Askarov, who is sentenced to life imprisonment in Kyrgyzstan for inciting inter-ethnic discord, organizing mass riots, and complicity in killing police officers during mass protests, is an attempt to create controlled chaos in the country. And this is coming from the president of Kyrgyzstan. U.S. State Department's actions look like they are aimed at inciting inter-ethnic discord. It looks like the U.S. is trying to create chaos in this country. It's just another country where they want the government to be removed, and they want a puppet government in place. And they'll do whatever they have to do this. I mean, we see out in Ukraine, the Ukrainian government is now storing natural gas in their underground storage facilities. As of right now, from July 1st to July 26th, they've stored about 100 million cubic meters of gas, and it was pumped into the underground storage facilities because they realized they need to continually to add this natural gas because they've been cut off from Russia, and they're looking for different places to find this gas. And if they mount a major offensive against the southeastern people, guess what? They don't want to be dependent on Russia, and we can see this is what they're doing at this point. The Donetsk governor, which was appointed by President Poroshenko, is saying that he's going to postpone elections in Donbass, in those areas which are controlled by Kiev. And of course, under the Minsk II agreement, they're supposed to have their elections in the fall, and it looks like in certain areas they're going to postpone this. Now, out in Uzbekistan, the U.S. Central Command head General Lloyd Austin discussed with Uzbek authorities on Monday the delivery of U.S. armored vehicles to Uzbekistan. And they're going to deliver, or they're going to donate 300 armored vehicles, namely mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. Now, what's very interesting about this, if we look at the map, we see that Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, it's all surrounding those inner countries where they're blocking off Russia. And it seems like they're trying to take hold of this entire area. And it seems that they are doing whatever they possibly can to create basically a containment area of Russia. Now, out in the Middle East, what are we seeing? We're seeing the Libyan army would be able to crush the Islamic State if the UN would just lift the arms embargo. Well, first of all, they're talking about the puppet government fighting against the people of Libya. And the Libyan armed forces said, listen, if you just give us the weapons, we can defeat the people of Libya. We can push them back, and we can take the country over once again. Because you have to remember, they had the peace deal in the United Nations, and the government, the people government of Libya, who's in Tripoli, did not agree to this. So there is no peace deal because they're not including them. So basically what they want to do is they want the weapons. This way they can force out the people government in Libya. Right now, the puppet government in Libya has said they've taken back the oil fields and they have control of the oil fields in Libya. And this is all they care about. Because as we know, in Libya, they moved the central bank and they said anyone that is coming in to purchase oil must go through the central bank and it must go to these certain ports, which is away from the government who is ruling in Tripoli. And we can see at this point in time, they did what they wanted to do. They took control of the oil fields. They're maintaining the control and the sale of oil. The rest of the people, they don't care. This is their main focus and purpose in this country. And the last thing to do is to remove that government in Tripoli, that government that was set up by the people. This is the main problem. Now, out in Israel, it looks like they are basically preparing, getting ready for something to happen. The IDF right now is calling up hundreds of thousands for emergency readiness war drills. Now, why are they doing this? I mean, they're calling up hundreds of thousands of reserve soldiers, and they're involved in this type of drill. The Air Force, with its bases, other facilities, will also take part in the call-up, among other activities. Base personnel will be carrying out emergency intelligence data analysis for the purpose of conducting airstrikes. The same goes for the Navy of Israel. And again, as we know, they've been using the information that the Palestinians in Gaza have been firing missiles into a desert area where no one is, and they're trying to convince us that they're under attack. Well, we know Gaza has been destroyed by Israel. We know the people are suffering, and the last thing they want to do is to fire upon Israel to have another attack. It makes no sense. Then they used the propaganda that the Islamic State is in Gaza and they're getting ready to make their move, which makes no sense whatsoever. Why would they go to Gaza? It makes no sense. And we can see this is all propaganda. We can see they're getting ready to do something. This is why they're having these drills, getting ready. And I wouldn't be surprised if they strike into Gaza once more, or these readiness drills are being prepared so they can go into Syria, because as we know, Israel flies into Syria very often and bombs different areas to help the Islamic State. And we know the United States government, central bankers, are preparing to make a huge offensive into Syria. And from all of this that we're seeing right now, Russia says they might revive the $1.6 billion oil gas project within Syria. If things start to level out and the conflict eases and military actions cease, Russia companies will go back into Syria. They froze their work, and they will renew their activities within a short period of time. And of course, the United States government, central bankers, Israel, and the other coalition forces, they don't want this to happen. Their objective is to remove Assad. And of course, we understand that Obama, Erdogan had a discussion, and then all of a sudden we have this safe zone that they're preparing in northern Syria. And of course the U.S. is out there saying that Turkey has a right to self-defense. They condemn the pro-Kurdish terrorist organization. They condemn all of this. And of course this is an act. It's an illusion to convince you why this is all happening. Of course, I see in the corporate media, and it's done over and over, this has nothing to do with Assad. We're not preparing the safe zone to go to get Assad. This has to do with other issues. Well, no, this all has to do with Assad, period. And they're setting up this safe zone, or if you want to call it a partial no-fly zone, or a no-fly zone. But of course the United States is out there saying, no, this is not a no-fly zone. We're not setting that up. We're setting up a ISIS-free zone in the northern area of Syria. Well, let's think about this for a second. They can't call it a no-fly zone because the Islamic State, they don't have an air force. So it wouldn't make sense, would it? So they're going to call it the Islamic State Free Zone. No terrorists allowed. Well, let me ask you, how do you keep control of this area? Well, you're going to patrol it with planes. You're going to make sure no other planes enter this area. So, really, it's a no-fly zone. And if they call this a safe zone, they're going to say it's not part of Syria anymore. And Turkey then can use this. The United States can use this area, which allows them to come further into Syria. Now, we talked about safe zones before. We knew this was coming. And the corporate media, the U.S. government, Turkey, is all out there saying, we will not put ground forces into Syria. Well, it sounds good. But what about ground forces in the safe zone? Well, they're going to say that's not part of Syria anymore. That's not part of Syria, so ground troops can go in there. Now, we talked about this before. We know this was going to happen sooner or later, and here we are. They're doing it. And this will not be the only safe zone. They will come down the whole eastern side of Syria. They want it to be separate and apart from Syria. This way they can bring in the ground troops from Turkey, the coalition forces, and the U.S. It makes it easier to mount their offensive and go after Assad. Now, of course, they're using the excuse, this has nothing to do with it. We're joining up with Turkey to fight the Islamic State. We're going to go after terrorists. So you're saying after, 5 years now? Maybe even a little bit longer. Turkey's goal, Saudi Arabia's goal, United States' goal, Israel's goal was to remove Assad. All of a sudden, they don't want to remove Assad. Their goal is not that. Their goal is only the Islamic State. Well, if that is true, then they would join forces with Assad. They would get the help from Russia. They would get the help from China. But they haven't done that whatsoever. And we can see at this point in time that their agenda is the same. It's always been the same. And it will not change. Now, Turkey has summoned NATO amid the airstrikes against the Islamic State and the Kurdish PKK. They couldn't figure out a way of how to set this up, so they had to stage this and make it look like they were going after another terrorist organization, the PKK. Because how else would they explain the safe zone? They couldn't. And this is the only way they would be able to do it. So we can see already they're starting the next phase. They're preparing to go after Assad. Now remember, if Turkey is attacked, they are a NATO nation. That means all other nations will come and help and get involved. And this is what they're hoping. This is what they're hoping that will happen. They're hoping that this is the case. Now it looks like Turkey is going to speak with Putin, or I should say Erdogan is going to speak with Putin about what is going on in Syria and Iraq. And of course, I wouldn't be surprised as, step away a little bit. Let us take care of this. Russia's going to say we should help out. They're going to say, not at this point, we have it. And before you know it, they're going after Assad. Because, like I said before, their goal for all these years has been the same, to remove Assad. And now they're trying to convince everyone in the corporate media that this is not their goal. This is not why they're doing this. Come on. We know what's really going on right now. We know this is what they're going to do. We understand that Congress goes on vacation in August. We understand the last 2 years something occurred. At this point, it looks like all thumbs are up, and it looks like they're starting the next phase. Can things change? Of course they can. They're not perfect. Things happen. Things don't go their way, and they have to change their plans. I mean, look what happened in 2013. They were all set to go into Syria. It didn't happen. Let's see what happens this time. They will try. Now, we understand the authorization for war is still pending in Congress. No traction. They don't believe they need to push it anywhere. And we know the powers that be would love to have this passed. It would make it so much easier for them. But the people of the United States is not behind it. Congress is not behind it. And the only way to get this thing through is for something to happen. To put fear in the people, to scare the people of why they need it. This is why they do these events. This is why they do these things. And we're going to have to watch very, very carefully during these next couple of weeks to see what occurs. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.